Discovered, a billionaire's mistaken voice memo exposes hidden truth that changed her life forever. Nora sat at the worn diner counter, her fingers gripping the edge as she wiped down the surfaces for what felt like the 100th time. The hum of the fluorescent lights buzzed above her, mixing with the sizzling sound of burgers cooking on the grill. Life in Willow Creek was simple, but it was never easy, especially not for a 26-year-old waitress with a dream of being a journalist and a father who needed her more than ever. Just last week, he'd forgotten where he left his collection of old war medals, a concrete reminder that every day became harder to navigate for them both. On this fateful Tuesday, after her shift, Nora slumped into her small apartment, its walls plastered with the fading clippings of articles she hoped to write one day. She pulled out her phone, scrolling aimlessly until her eyes landed on a voicemail. "Urgent, meet me ASAP." The voice was deep and confident, belonging to Billy Harrington, a billionaire who painted himself as a savior of their town through charity. But Nora always sensed something wasn't right. She hesitated, but curiosity got the better of her. The moment she pressed play, her heart raced. The message revealed intricate webs of corruption, money intended for local schools siphoned off into Harrington's private account, while residents struggled to make ends meet. As each word unwound, Nora felt a fire ignite within her. This was the truth she craved, the exposure that could shatter the facades surrounding her town and their beloved benefactor. She spent the next few days wrestling with the implications of what she uncovered. Her mind spun with anxious thoughts. Friends were no longer friendly, their whispers louder than they had ever been. The diner, once her second home, felt like a prison. A chilling quiet enveloped her as she served coffee, receiving nothing but sidelong glances from patrons who once shared smiles over breakfast. "Betrayer," they whispered behind her back. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. In the midst of her turmoil, a shock came when her estranged brother, Ben, called. He had traveled back from the city, the life he led severing ties with her and their father. They hadn't spoken in years, yet here he was, wanting to meet. Their conversation unfolded at a little park bench, the sun low and golden, painting everything in a warm glow. Tears streamed down her face as vulnerability filled the air, revealing love buried under layers of hurt and silence. As the town's annual festival approached, tension swelled. On the one hand, she could turn a blind eye, return to the safety of family bonds. On the other, she could risk it all for what was right. A stage stood ready for her at the festival, a place to step into the light and face everything head-on. But as she read the statement she had poured her soul into, self-doubt crept in like shadows at dusk. Would they hear her? Or would she be silenced like so many before? The community stood at a crossroads, but Nora knew deep down the truth could shatter the silence that weighed heavy on all their shoulders, or it could bury her whole. Would she find the courage to speak up? Nora's breath hitched as she stood behind the curtain, the vibrant lights from the festival illuminating the crowd beyond. Volunteers had decorated the town square with colorful streamers and fairy lights, but beneath the festive facade, tension buzzed like the static of a frayed wire. The scent of fried dough mingled with the crisp autumn air, tempting her to forget the weight pressing down on her chest. She tightened her grip on the paper in her hand, her carefully crafted statement, the culmination of sleepless nights and frantic notes, jotted down in the margins of her life. The words felt heavy, a truth she was about to hurl into the soft Midwestern night, threatening to shatter the delicate image of Billy Harrington that so many cherished. "Are you all right?" Ben's voice brought her back from the brink of her thoughts. He stood beside her, concern etched on his face. His presence was a bittersweet reminder of the safety she had desperately missed, but also of the churning uncertainty that lay ahead. The bond they had once shared flickered back to life, though the darkness of their shared past still loomed in the corners of her heart. "I don't know," she replied, feeling a lump in her throat. "What if they don't believe me?" What if this backfires? He reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. You know the truth. That's all that matters. Whatever happens next, just speak from your heart. His eyes were steady, and in that moment, Nora felt the flicker of hope ignite once more. The festival's MC, a lively local radio host, began introducing her from the stage. The crowd's applause rumbled like distant thunder, and she stepped forward, the curtain parting like the waves of uncertainty cascading through her mind. As she walked towards the microphone, the familiar buzz of voices died down, leaving only the sound of her heartbeat in her ears. She lifted the statement to her lips, and for a moment, the words blurred before her. Then she remembered her father, how he'd always taught her to value honesty above all else. She inhaled deeply, grounding herself in the truth that had brought her here, and began to speak. Thank you for being here tonight. She forced her eyes to scan the crowd, friends, strangers, and familiar faces flashing with disbelief. I know many of you admire Billy Harrington, but I have something serious to share. As she detailed the betrayal, each line felt like a piece of herself freeing itself from invisible chains. The gasps that erupted from the audience drove her forward, fueled by a mixture of fear and resolve. She could almost see the fragility of the lavish narrative they'd been sold, and as she revealed each detail of the corruption, she sensed the fabric of the community shifting. Yet, as she pressed on, she caught sight of Billy in the crowd, his demeanor calm, his sharp gaze locked onto her. An unsettling chill crawled up her spine. There was power in his stillness, and in that moment she realized just how high the stakes were. When she finished, a silence descended, thick and heavy. Her pulse raced as she looked upon the crowd. Some faces were aghast, others filled with anger. The whispers started, a low murmur that turned into an electrifying buzz of disbelief. Suddenly it hit her: Nora had done it. She had spoken up. But would the truth open the door to change or whip up a storm that was beyond her control? Just as she stepped down from the stage, her phone buzzed in her pocket. The screen lit up with an unknown number. She hesitated but answered. Nora. There was a pause, then the voice she dreaded filled her ear. You've made a mistake. Her heart sank. What had she unleashed? Nora's heart raced as she heard the cold voice on the other end, the words slicing through her like a winter frost. You've made a mistake echoed in her mind, a warning intertwined with dread. She gripped the phone tighter, her knuckles white. What do you mean? She replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. You don't understand the consequences of what you've done, the voice said, smooth as silk but laced with bitterness. You've put us all in danger, including yourself. A wave of nausea washed over her. She glanced up at Ben, who was watching her with a furrowed brow, sensing that something was terribly wrong. He stepped closer, a protective instinct shimmering in his eyes. As she turned back to the call, the voice continued, almost taunting her, let us not forget how easy it would be for others to silence a little girl with big dreams. A shiver crept down Nora's spine. The threat lingered in the air, heavy and palpable. She wanted to hang up, to shove the reality back into the depths of her mind, but she stayed rooted in her spot. Who are you? What do you want from me? She managed to whisper, her voice trembling like the leaves fluttering in the breeze outside. Just to remind you that truth is a double-edged sword, he said, a chilling laugh punctuating his words. If you want to protect yourself and those you care about, you'll tread carefully. There's much more at stake than you know. And before she could respond, the line went dead. Who was that? Ben asked, his voice low and urgent. He reached for her arm, steering her away from the chaos of the festival. We need to talk. Now. Nora pressed her trembling lips together, shock heavy on her chest. She had just agreed to put it all out there, to expose the truth. But now she felt like a target, hunted by shadows that crawled deeper than mere exposure. They ducked behind a food stall, the smell of cinnamon and sugar swirling around them, a stark contrast to the chill that enveloped her thoughts. I don't know how to explain this, she murmured, biting back tears. I thought I was doing the right thing. But what if I've made things worse? Her voice cracked, the weight of uncertainty crushing her. Nora, he said, his voice firm but gentle, there's no going back now. You need to figure out your next move. We need a plan. She nodded, the enormity of the moment sweeping over her. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, the ground disappearing beneath her feet. What did I unleash? Ben met her gaze, and for a moment, the silence was laden with possibility. You uncovered something, and we have to ensure the truth doesn't get twisted against you. We'll find a way through this together. She drew in a breath, trying to harness the flicker of hope igniting within her, yet doubt clawed at her insides. But what if they come for us? What if they stop at nothing? Just as Ben began to formulate a response, a commotion erupted beyond the stall. Shouts surged in the distance, voices rising, filled with urgency and anger. A knot tightened in Nora's stomach as she and Ben exchanged worried glances. Looks like the fallout has begun, he whispered. Her pulse quickened. There was no going back now. They were in it together, but could they emerge from the storm alive? Nora took a step forward, unwilling to back down. We need to figure out what is happening now. But in the back of her mind, doubt flickered like a candle in the wind. What had she truly set into motion? Nora's feet felt heavy as she and Ben pushed through the throngs of people, the colorful festival bright and inviting around them, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing inside her. The air was thick with tension, punctuated by the distant shouts. She focused on moving, mind spinning like a top, searching for answers that felt just out of reach. What do we do? She asked breathlessly, glancing up at Ben, his expression a mix of determination and fear. We need intel, he replied, scanning the crowd. We can't let this get any worse. We should find a safe spot to regroup and figure out who else might know what's going on. Nora felt a sudden pang of isolation. A festival intended for joy was now a treacherous maze, each face a potential threat. But they'll come after us, won't they? It's possible, he admitted, his voice steady even as uncertainty flickered in his eyes. But we can outsmart them. We've got to stick together. Ben's reassurance warmed her, yet the anxiety gnawing at her stomach remained. What if they don't care about that? What if they take action before we can, fix this? We'll cross that bridge when we get there, he said, squeezing her hand tightly. But right now, let us focus. We need to know if anyone else is involved. If anyone else is at risk. They slipped behind a row of stalls where the noise lessened, barricaded momentarily by vendors busy with customers. Nora leaned against the cool metal of a cart, taking a moment to steady her breathing. Just then, the commotion outside seemed to escalate. Did you hear that? Ben asked, eyes darting toward the noise. She nodded, dread settling like a stone in her gut. Voices raised in anger, moments of chaos. It was becoming clear, something was unraveling, and soon it could spill over to them. Ben moved closer, whispering urgently. We need to find Sarah. She's in on the investigation and might have more information. Sarah? But how do we find her? Nora rushed her words, her mind racing. She's supposed to be at the old fountain by the main stage. If we can get to her. As soon as the words left his mouth, they both turned at the sound of approaching footsteps. It was the type of sound that made her heart stop. The vibrations of the ground announced people marching with purpose. Nora's instincts kicked in, they had to move now. Come on, Ben urged, pulling her deeper behind the stalls. They squeezed past a couple of startled festivalgoers, her pulse pounding in her ears, drowning out everything but the urgency of the moment. They emerged into a narrow alley that led towards the fountain. She could feel the impending danger looming behind them, but instinct pushed her forward. What is happening, Ben? She blurted, the sheer uncertainty threatening to swallow her whole. I don't know, he replied, quickening their pace. But we can stop it. We have to. Before he could finish, the crowd erupted into chaos. Screams echoed, and people began to run, a tidal wave of panic consuming the festival. Nora and Ben exchanged terrified glances, instinctively clutching each other tighter. Together, they barely managed to keep their footing as they rushed towards the fountain, desperate to find Sarah, and answers before it was too late. But as they turned the corner, the sight ahead froze them in their tracks. A figure loomed before the fountain, silhouetted against the harsh lights of the festival, a menacing presence that seemed wrong in every sense. Nora's heart dropped. This couldn't be good. This isn't over, Ben whispered, and with that, they inched forward, bracing for whatever lay ahead. What did that figure want? And how was it tied to the storm brewing around them? Nora's breath caught in her throat, her eyes wide as she took in the figure. It was cloaked in shadows but radiated an undeniable heat, a threat lingering like smoke from a fire. Do you see who it is? She whispered urgently, her heart racing. Ben squinted. No, but the way everyone is scattering, they must know him. We need to be careful. As they stayed hidden within the alley, Nora felt her thoughts racing faster than her heart. Who was this person? Was he part of whatever chaos had erupted? Should we backtrack? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, but uncertainty flickered in her belly. The festival had once been alive, a celebration of light and joy, and now, it seemed like a ghost town in comparison. No, Ben replied, determination hardening his voice. We can't let fear stop us now. We have to know what's going on. They took a cautious step forward, the crowd's screams melding into a cacophony of confusion. Each echo ricocheted off the alley walls, heightening her sense of dread. Just as they crept closer, a sudden burst of light illuminated the figure, revealing a face both familiar and unsettling. It was someone they had seen in the news, someone seasoned in power and deception. John Thatcher, Ben muttered, jaw tightening. He's the key player in this mess. Memories flooded back to Nora, news reports linking Thatcher to shady dealings, whispers of greed and betrayal. But what was he doing here, at this moment, in this chaos? Why would he come to the festival? Nora pondered aloud, her earlier fears morphing into something deeper. What does he want? Ben shook his head, his grip on her hand steady. Whatever it is, it's not good. We need to find Sarah now. She might have a connection to him, or at least she'll know why he's here. They resumed their pace, but now it felt like they were moving in slow motion. Nora felt a tightening in her chest. The need to reach Sarah felt like climbing a mountain, each step becoming more labored. They rounded the corner again, every nerve in her body alert. Suddenly, Sarah appeared, weaving through the crowd toward the fountain, her expression a mix of urgency and concern. Nora's heart leaped at the sight of her. Sarah! She called out, raising her voice above the noise. Sarah turned sharply, relief washing over her features at the sight of them, but it quickly turned to alarm as she spotted the growing panic around them. What happened? I heard screams. John Thatcher is here, Ben said, his voice taut. We think he's connected to whatever's going on. We need your help. Sarah's eyes widened, and a flicker of recognition sparked in her gaze. Then we need to move, now. We can't let him see us. As they backed away, Nora felt that crushing weight in her gut again. Where do we go? Follow me. I have a plan. Sarah led them towards an inconspicuous entrance near the fountain, the sound of chaos behind them intensifying with every step. They slipped into a dimly lit room, adrenaline pumping through their veins. It was small, cluttered with boxes and equipment no one would expect them here. Okay, we can talk here, Sarah said, catching her breath. I might have something on Thatcher that could turn this whole thing around. But we need to be careful, he's got eyes everywhere. Nora felt a surge of hope mixed with fear. What do you have? As Sarah began to explain, Nora's thoughts whirled. What if they could expose Thatcher? What if this was the turning point? But in the back of her mind, a sense of inexorability loomed. Would they be able to stay hidden long enough to see this through? The sound of footsteps echoed outside the room. Nora's heart sank. Had they been found? Everyone, get behind the boxes, Ben urged urgently. As they scrambled, Nora felt a mix of anticipation and despair. Whatever was about to happen could change everything, but would they be ready for it? And as the door creaked open, the shadow of a figure pushed inside, revealing the last person she expected to see. Surprised, the figure said, a chilling smile on their face. What would the encounter reveal? And could it lead to their salvation or their doom? The figure stepped into the dim room, its outline sharp against the light streaming from the open door. Nora squinted, her heartbeat quickening as she recognized the familiar face. It was Sarah's brother, Alex, someone she had trusted with her secrets, a connection she thought was safe. "What are you doing here?" Sarah demanded, her voice rising in disbelief. Alex's smile faded, replaced by a wary expression. "I could ask you the same thing. You shouldn't be here, Sarah. It's not safe." "What's that supposed to mean?" Ben blurted out, tension coiling tightly in the air. "Do you even know what's happening out there?" "I do," Alex said, running a hand through his hair. "And I know you shouldn't be around John Thatcher. You're in over your heads." Nora felt confusion sweep over her like a wave. "You're acting like you know him. What do you know about him?" Alex glanced at Sarah and then back at Nora, his gaze intensifying. "He's dangerous. He's been following the money, and right now, he's looking for something or someone. And that someone could be us?" Ben interjected, his brow furrowing. "More like you," Alex replied, tension in his tone. "Especially you, Nora." Nora's stomach dropped. "Me? Why? You were at the rally a few days ago." "I saw you," he said, looking more serious than ever. "You were talking to the reporter who ended up exposing those documents about Thatcher. You're in the line of fire now." Just then, a sound echoed from outside, heavy footsteps approaching. The three exchanged panicked glances. "Leave! Now!" Sarah shouted, her eyes darting between them. "He can't find us here." "No, wait." Nora felt the cold grip of fear. "We need to figure this out first. If we leave, he'll be back and we'll have nothing. We don't have time for this," Alex insisted, glancing towards the door as the footsteps grew nearer. Nora's mind raced, searching for a solution, a way to harness the momentum. "Maybe we can trap him. Use what you know, Alex. If you have something about Thatcher, the truth, we can use it to our advantage. It could change everything." Alex hesitated, then stepped back to a stacked box and reached inside. He pulled out a thin file, his eyes flickering with apprehension. "This is everything I managed to gather. It's dangerous, but it has connections, money trails, shady transactions. If you expose this, what if we can't expose it? What if we can't get it to the right people?" Ben challenged, his face scrambled with uncertainty. "We have to try. We can't let him keep terrorizing everyone," Sarah said, a new determination igniting in her stare. The footsteps paused outside the door, as if waiting, lurking. "Okay, we need to move," Alex said, urgency flooding his voice. He slid the file into Nora's shaking hands. But just as they began to turn, the door flew open. "Nowhere to run!" An imposing figure barked from the shadows. The air cracked with tension. Nora's heart raced as she clutched the file tightly. The truth was right there, but they had to face this figure first. "Stay together," Ben shouted, positioning himself protectively in front of Sarah and Nora. Nora swallowed her fear, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She had the file, their ticket to turning the tide, but would they survive the confrontation ahead? And in that heartbeat, everything changed. Who would emerge victorious from the chaos that was spiraling out of control? The figure took a step forward, revealing a broad-shouldered man with a piercing gaze. Shadows creased his face, but they couldn't hide the menace that radiated from him. Nora's grip on the file tightened, her palms sweaty. "Who the hell are you?" Ben demanded, his voice steady but strained. "Just a messenger," the man said, his tone smooth yet laced with an undercurrent of danger. "And you're making a big mistake, poking your noses where they don't belong." Nora's heart pounded louder in her chest. "What do you want?" she asked, trying to maintain the bravado she didn't feel. "Simple. Hand over the file." "That's not yours to keep," the man replied, a sly smile stretching across his lips as though he relished their predicament. Before she could respond, Sarah interjected. "You think we're just going to give it to you? You've got no power here." "Is that so?" The man chuckled darkly, glancing at Alex. "Let's just say I'm not the only one looking for that file. You have no idea the kinds of people who are watching you right now." Nora could feel the walls closing in. The air was thick with fear, tinged with a desperate need to escape. "We'll make sure the truth gets out." "You can't silence us," she said, though her voice trembled. "Ah, but I can," the man said, his tone light but threatening. "And I will. I'd hate to see what would happen if someone like you got hurt. We wouldn't want that on our hands, would we?" Nora's mind whirled. He was right. The stakes were higher than she'd realized, and in this moment, she felt utterly powerless. But Sarah and Ben were right behind her. "Back off!" Ben yelled, stepping forward, fists clenched, trying to shield the others. The bravado in his voice was admirable, but to Nora, it felt shaky, uncertain. "Stand down, kid," the man replied, his eyes never leaving Nora. "You're going to back down from this fight. And fast. You have until morning to deliver that file to John Thatcher or else." The ultimatum hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. The man turned on his heel and walked back toward the door, leaving behind a trail of unease. "Wait!" Sarah called after him, desperation seeping through her voice. "You can't just walk away after threatening us like this." He stopped, glancing back with a grin that sent chills down Nora's spine. "Oh, I can. And I will." With that, he stepped outside, the sound of the door slamming shut echoing around the room, leaving the three of them in an oppressive silence. Nora felt like the breath had been knocked out of her. "What do we do now?" Alex asked, his eyes darting around the room. Nora looked at her friends, searching their faces for answers. The file was still clutched tightly in her hands, its contents holding the potential to upend everything they knew. But the danger was real now. "We can't just give it to Thatcher. There has to be a way, but what's the alternative?" Ben interjected, frustration leaking into his voice. "We have no idea what he is capable of." Nora's heart raced again, the urgency spinning in her mind. "If we expose it ourselves, we'll have to act fast. We need allies, people who can support us. We can't take this on alone." "Who do we trust?" Sarah asked, her expression tense. As they considered their options, the weight of the world pressed down on Nora. Could they really fight back in a game that seemed rigged? In the thick of uncertainty, a spark ignited within her, a fierce determination. "We'll figure it out together. But it starts now. We have to act before time runs out." Just then, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, her breath hitching as she saw an unknown number flash across the screen. What if it was about the file? With her heart in her throat, she hit answer, standing on the precipice of an uncertain future. "Hello?" she said, bracing for what came next. Unbeknownst to them all, this phone call could change everything. Would it be a lifeline or a trap? "Is this Nora?" The voice on the other end was gravelly, yet surprisingly calm. "Yes, who's this?" Nora replied, her heart pounding in sync with the uncertainty of the conversation. "She can help you," the voice continued, ignoring her question. "If you're holding that file, I hope you're ready for the consequences. You've stirred the pot, and now it's boiling over." "What do you mean?" Nora felt a chill dance along her spine. She could hear the faint sound of traffic in the background, rattling her nerves even more. "I'm not here to intimidate, that's the messenger's job. I'm just ensuring you know what's at stake. That file contains secrets that go far beyond what you think. Your lives, they're all on the line now." Nora's imagination raced. What could be so dangerous? She glanced at Ben and Sarah, who were visibly on edge, listening intently. "Listen, I don't have time for games. I need clarity," Nora insisted, her voice steadier than she felt. "If you know something, tell me." A pause hung heavily on the line. "Then meet me at the diner on 5th at midnight. Come alone or face the wrath of some very powerful people." With that, the line went dead. "Who was that?" Sarah asked, her voice tight with fear. "I don't know," Nora breathed, her mind racing. "They said the file holds secrets, that our lives are at stake." "Great, just what we need," Ben scoffed, running a hand through his hair. "But seriously, what are we going to do? Another meeting? Are you kidding me?" Nora's heart sank as she weighed the words of the mysterious caller. but her gut told her they needed to take a risk. We have to go. It could be a lead. What if it's a trap? Alex questioned, his brow furrowing. You can't just walk into something like that alone. I won't, Nora replied firmly. If it's dangerous, you're coming with me. You have to trust me. Ben exchanged glances with Sarah and Alex, and despite the fear in his eyes, he nodded. Fine, but we need a plan. We need to get out of here and figure out how to handle this. As they huddled together, going over the possible scenarios and stashing the files safely in Nora's backpack, Nora felt the tension in the air shift. They had crossed the line, and now they were deep into waters laden with danger. Every choice mattered, and every second counted. Suddenly, the sound of screeching tires interrupted their discussion, and all heads turned towards the window. A dark car, almost menacing, slowed to a stop in front of the building. What now? Sarah whispered, anxiety edging her voice. Stay calm, Nora whispered back, fear prickling at her spine. We can't appear nervous. If they see us... The car door swung open, and a figure stepped out, its silhouette sharp against the dimming streetlights. Nora squinted, desperate to recognize the person, her breath catching in her throat. Change of plans? Ben exclaimed nervously, that's John Thatcher-esque guy. All at once, they had to make a choice. Stand and face whatever was coming, or find a back exit and run. The weight of the moment pressed down heavily on them as the figure began moving closer, a slow stride filled with purpose. Now! Nora shouted, heart hammering in her chest. We stick together! But their feet felt glued to the floor, fear eclipsing their resolve. What would confront them next? Just as confusion reigned, another phone buzzed in Nora's pocket. This time, it wasn't an unknown number. It was a text from an unexpected source. You need to leave. They're closer than you think. Nora's heart sank as she stared at the screen, realizing that the net was closing in. What had she unleashed upon them all? Nora's breath caught in her throat as the weight of the text sank in. They're closer than you think. Her heart raced faster than ever. This wasn't just a coincidence. Something deeper was at play, and the urgency stitched itself into every fiber of her being. Did you get another message? Ben asked, his voice trembling slightly as he fought to keep his composure. Yeah, and it's telling us to leave now. Nora replied, her eyes darting to the window where the figure was advancing with unsettling confidence. Let us go, Sarah urged, grabbing Nora's arm. But where would they go? They could bolt through the back exit, but that felt like a shot in the dark, risking running straight into whoever was waiting. With panic setting in, Nora considered their options. We can't just run blindly, she whispered urgently. We need to think. Maybe it's not just him. What if they're all around us? Alex asked, the fear in his voice palpable. Nora locked eyes with him, determination surging within her. We can't let fear dictate our next move. We need the file. It's our only ally. The ominous figure reached the door, its shadow stretching across the threshold. Nora felt a cold chill creep up her spine, but she stood her ground. Listen, she said, gathering her friends around her. We go back to the file and confront whoever steps through that door. We've come too far to back down now. As if reading her thoughts, the figure opened the door, a rush of cool air filling the room along with an unsettling presence. It was a man, tall with a sharp jaw and ice-blue eyes that scanned the room as if appraising their very souls. Where's the file? He demanded, his voice smooth, yet laced with authority. Nora felt her heart hammering against her rib cage. Who sent you? She asked, attempting to sound brave, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. Your time for questions is over. Hand it over, and I might consider letting you walk out of here in one piece, he replied, a dangerous smile creeping across his lips. No way, Ben intervened defiantly. We're not giving anything to you. The man stepped inside the room, closing the door behind him with an unsettling click. You have no idea what you're dealing with, do you? This is bigger than you can imagine. Nora felt the weight of his words, her mind racing through the implications. The conversation they had overheard, the threats, the text, it was all connected. And if this man was true to his word, they were digging too deep into something they weren't prepared for. Whatever you think you know, it doesn't matter. We're not afraid of you, she said, her voice breaking slightly but her resolve unwavering. He took a step closer, his blue eyes piercing hers. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the realization that something is more important than fear itself. I'll return tonight. If you're still holding that file, I assure you, it'll be your last mistake. Without waiting for a response, he turned and walked back out, leaving the door hanging open. Nora's stomach twisted into knots as they stood, frozen in disbelief. The tension hung thick in the air, and she wondered what he really knew. Did you get a good look at him? Sarah breathed, breaking the silence. Nora nodded, deep in thought. Even if we're in over our heads, we need a way to get ahead of this. We need to learn what we can before he comes back. Ben exhaled sharply. And if he doesn't come alone? Then we want to be caught off guard, Alex said, determination lining his features. But the question lingered heavily. How could they prepare for an uncertain enemy when their own secrets were still tangled in the web of danger? As they gathered their nerves, the clock ticked ominously toward midnight, and they knew it wouldn't be long before the next confrontation came. Nora looked to her friends, her heart thumping hard in her chest. Whatever happens next, we face it together. No matter what we uncover. But what she didn't expect was that their allegiance would be tested in ways none of them could foresee. In the depths of this chaos, could loyalty resist temptation? With the hour drawing near, secrets loomed over them heavier than ever. Would the truth set them free or plunge them deeper into peril? The danger was closer than she thought, and the stakes were about to rise. Nora's heart thundered in her chest as she stared into the darkness that the figure had left behind. Ben, Sarah, and Alex gathered close, eyes wide with uncertainty, united by a common fear. What now? Ben asked, his voice barely a whisper. Nora shifted her weight, contemplating their next move. The clock was ticking. They had little time to waste. We need to find a safe place, regroup and figure out how to expose Thatcher and his associates before they can get to us, she said, her tone firm despite the tremor of fear running through her. She felt emboldened, anchored by her resolve and her friends at her side. Let us head to my parents' old storage unit, Sarah suggested, her voice steady. It's not far from here, and there's an exit no one knows about. We can figure out our next steps there. Nora nodded, urgency coursing through her veins. Okay, let us move. We can't let anyone catch us off guard. The four of them slipped out of the back door and into the cool night air. Shadows engulfed them as they navigated their way through the dimly lit streets. Each step felt heavy as they glanced over their shoulders, half expecting danger to leap at them from every corner. As they arrived at the storage facility, Sarah led them through a narrow path lined with rusting containers. They found the unit, its lock rusty and worn, and Sarah fumbled with a key she had kept hidden for years. Come on, she urged, her voice trembling with adrenaline. Finally, the lock clicked, and they slipped inside, shutting the door softly behind them. In the darkness, they felt the weight of the situation settle around them, thickening the air. Flicking on a small flashlight, the dim beam illuminated the walls, cluttered with memories and forgotten articles of the past. Nora exhaled slowly, grounding herself. All right. We need to decide our course of action quickly. Do we go to the police? Alex suggested, though uncertainty laced his voice. What police? The ones paid off by Thatcher? Ben shot back, frustration flaring. What if we reach out to someone who can help us without exposing ourselves? Nora interjected, her mind racing. What about that journalist I met at the festival? He seemed genuinely concerned about local corruption. James? Sarah pondered, recalling the man who had been asking questions about Harrington. You think he'll believe us? We can't back down now. The truth can't remain buried. We need to do this for everyone in Willow Creek, Nora replied, raw determination igniting within her. As they huddled together, sketching out a plan, a sudden noise echoed from outside, a familiar sound that made their hearts scramble. A car engine revved, the headlights piercing the darkness and casting sharp shadows across the storage unit. "Someone's here," Ben whispered, tension sifting through the air. They pulled together, hearts racing, breathing in sync as they listened to the approaching footsteps. "Everyone stay cool," Nora instructed, her voice low and steady. With each step outside, her heart pounded, knowing this could be the moment everything changed. As the footsteps neared, a figure emerged in the light. It was none other than the journalist, James. Relief surged through Nora as he approached, scanning the surroundings. "Quickly! Let me in!" he urged, his expression serious. "I saw the commotion out there. I need to know what is happening." Inside the cluttered unit, emotions swirled, the air heavy with latent tension. "We uncovered something big," Nora said, her voice steadying as she faced him. "Thatcher and Harrington are living a lie. They're stealing from the community." "I've heard whispers," James replied, his eyes widening. "But this? This could blow their operations wide open." "Do you have proof?" Nora clutched the file tightly, a fierce pride filling her. "Yes. Everything we need is in here." James's expression turned grave. "Then we need to act fast. I can help you expose this. But we can't just waltz into the police station or any media outlet without a strategy." Nora's heart raced as she considered the stakes. "What's the plan?" "We'll gather information and evidence," James replied, his eyes reflecting the urgency. "Then we'll bring it to a trusted news outlet willing to investigate further. But we have to move quickly." As a shared resolve ignited between them, they began poring over the file, connecting dots, highlighting critical links. The longer they worked, the greater the anticipation swelled. The truth was within their grasp. But time slipped through their fingers like grains of sand. Suddenly, the outside lights flickered, sounds of chaos broke the night, a cacophony enveloping them once more. Nora's heart twisted. "Is that police?" she whispered, dread settling in her stomach. James turned to face the door, urgency threading his words. "We need to move now." "No!" Ben exclaimed, panic rising. "They need to hear our story." "All of us are at risk if we stay here," James urged, and Nora's mind spun with conflicting thoughts. With the sirens blaring outside, she made a choice. They couldn't simply reveal themselves. "Let us get out through the back," she suggested, adrenaline driving her decision. "We can sneak around." In a flurry of activity, they grabbed the file, securing it under Nora's coat. With resolve anchoring their footsteps, they snuck through the side exit, shadows enveloping them as they slipped into the night. The air felt electric, crackling with possibilities and dangers that loomed ahead. As they melded into the shadows, Nora grasped Ben's hand, realizing their fight had just begun, but the truth would light the way. In the depths of fear, they found their courage, and together they would unravel the lies twisted into their town, risking everything for, as Nora had always believed, the power of truth. Now more than ever, her voice would be the spark that ignited the flames of change. It was time to fight, time to hold on to hope. And as they stepped into the engulfing night, Nora knew they could face anything as long as they stood together. But they couldn't stay silent now. Each step brought them closer to the battle ahead, and with every choice made, they were moving towards a new dawn, even if turbulent skies lay before them. This was only the beginning. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. True fans know that every action counts.